Chairman.
Give us a little background. This fellow, along with Howard Coble, has got the moxie to wear a seersucker suit. You got to give him a hand. He has definitely earned the right to be here, and we appreciate all your long years of service. Excuse me, I had to say that.
Thank you. My wife and I grew up in Baton Rouge, where seersucker is very common. I consider seersucker to be my native costume. Happy to be here. I don't think that it's going to be possible within 2 or 3 minutes to discuss these issues as witnessed by the 15 minutes that has already been spent on it. So I'd like to have a little more time than that, and I think I'm not going to be taking up much of your time, but I appreciate the invitation to come. I'm happy to do this. I've been National Committee man from Virginia since 1988. I have attended all the meetings of the Convention Rules Committee starting in 1972. My wife and I have contributed major donations this year to the Ronnie O'Brien campaign, and I believe we have to defeat Barack Obama on the floor of the convention tomorrow. I'll be handing out copies of this book that I created, which reads, "What did you expect from an Obama, from an acorn organizer?" What happened in the Rules Committee was a lot of normal business, altering minor things, but there was a whole series of proposals that were largely put forward by the gentleman mentioned earlier, Ben Ginsburg. Every single one of those proposals centralized power within the Republican Party, the National Committee, and many of them made it much more difficult for anything to rise from the bottom to the top and focus on top-down stuff. The minority reports, which has in the middle 30s that I know of, and is making progress across many states as people can see what is in it, is about 2 rules. One of them is the new Rule 12, and it was described what it says. It would allow the Republican National Committee by a 3/4 vote to change the rules of the Republican Party, handing National Party officials the power to change National Party rules adopted by state grassroots leaders of the Republican National Convention for generations. The prohibition of manipulated changes in the national rules of the Republican Party between national conventions has served as one of the crown jewels of our party. It is a power grab which opens the door to many future power grabs. Ladies and gentlemen, a 3/4 vote of the Republican National Committee is not a sufficient protection, because I've been on the committee a long time, 24 years now, and I'm telling you that what it in fact is, it gives the national chairman the right to change the rules, because the national chairman can get 3/4 vote for anything that he wants on a whim. He can get it, and the argument, well, it's the leadership that wants it, is compelling at the national committee, and the national chairman has the power of the purse, because money flows from the national committee to the states, and members of the committee are not likely to vote against anything proposed by the national chairman. It is a disaster, in my judgment. It is the worst single proposal that I have ever seen passed by a convention rules committee. The Democrats do this sort of thing all the time. They've always been able to change the rules between conventions. Always. And what they do is they spend the period between conventions with different factions or different Democrat candidates maneuvering to change the rules in order to favor their faction or their candidates. This is a terrible precedent, and takes away the stability of our rules between conventions. So that's the issue on Rule 12. Now, the other amendments are to Rule 15, which under the new numbering would be Rule 16. And the first of them is absolutely shocking. We spent years and years and election cycles trying to figure out a way to stop the front loading of the delegate selection process so that we wouldn't have closer and closer to what amounts to a national primary. It was debated at convention after convention, and finally for this election cycle we came upon a system which said that any state which selects or binds its delegates in March would have to employ some kind of proportional representation among the candidates who are receiving votes in the primary. And after that, after the 1st of April, the state could have a winner-take-all primary. The purpose of it was to spread out the selection so you didn't have a super-duper Tuesday where a high percentage of the delegates are selected at once, and eliminates the possibility for the vetting of the candidate over a long period of time. This system worked. We had a significant period of time where the candidates were vetted many times in this process. Different candidates were ahead in the polls. And conceivably, if we had had a national primary on any one of those days, one of those other people would have won the nomination. But we had a vetting. And I don't believe anybody can maintain that our candidate for president is a better candidate because he went through that long vetting process. He is a much stronger candidate because he had that process. And this is a bizarre circumstance. I asked Ben Ginsberg, why are you doing this? Because he represented himself as the spokesman for the Romney campaign. And this is what he told me, ladies and gentlemen. He says, well, that wasn't our proposal. We're doing it as a favor for some friends. That's what he told me. And that's
I didn't understand. What is the change?
The change just changes one word. It says that states that select their delegates in March, currently it says shall have proportional allocation based on the primary votes. The word is changed from shall to may, which means Katie bar the door. You can have winner-take-all primaries anytime throughout the period. I guarantee you what will happen is there will be again a rush towards the first Tuesday in March, and we come closer again to having a national primary, which virtually the entire party up until last Friday agreed was a bad idea. So that's the first one in Rule, the old Rule 15, the new Rule 16. The final thing which they did, which is particularly horrifying to me, is they inserted a rule which allows the presidential candidates to disavow, after a state party has selected its delegates based on the rules adopted by the state party, it allows the presidential candidates to disavow and remove people who were elected delegates through the normal process within the state. That's pretty shocking. And
doesn't impact us. We don't do it that way.
well, that's true, but these are national rules. In Virginia, we had a convention with 4,000 delegates, grassroots people, lots of establishment, longtime party activists, Tea Party people, Ron Paul people. 4,000 people came to participate, and the party establishment treated everybody fairly. We welcomed everybody in. It was fair. It was polite. It was even cordial. We came up with a consensus agreement among the different factions. The nominations committee came up with 13 names for people to be at-large delegates. The nominations committee report was adopted by the convention of all these diverse people, was approved unanimously. our grassroots activists who were newly active because they wanted to participate in the party are going to be infuriated by the institution of a system where if you are elected under the rules of the party and you play by the rules, that you can be removed as a delegate by presidential candidates. It is a horrible thing, and it is going to make it more difficult to carry the Commonwealth of Virginia for our candidate, which we dearly want to do. So I thank you for the opportunity to address you.
Would you come answer a couple questions, then I'm going to ask you to leave unless people say they don't want to do that.
Sure.
We got a question from Jeff Palmer.
I don't understand how this rule would not apply to North Carolina. We have delegates which are approved at the county level, and then you go to the district and the state. And I don't see how this rule would not allow the presidential candidate to take advantage of which of his delegates.
It was not I who said it didn't apply to North Carolina. I don't know what your rules are. If you elect delegates through rules that are approved by the North Carolina Republican Party, and you have a binding primary, then the presidential candidates will have the right under this rule, as it says in the rule, to disallow those people to be delegates. They will be removed as delegates because the presidential campaign says no. And what I anticipate is going to happen under those circumstances is that fewer grassroots people are going to be named delegates, and the candidates are going to name top donors to their campaigns to fill the
That's what North Carolina wants, right?
You want to show me the door? I'm happy to go. My wife and I have an event tonight. I appreciate your invitation.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.